free speech and big tech and the rest of it. And I sense the person I'm about to bring on might have a little announcement. And in case you're hearing birds chirping in the background, you might have put it together already. Congressman Tulsi Gabbard, welcome back to the Rubin Report. Long time no speak.
Thank you. Yeah, lots happened since we talked last.
We just talked like 4 days ago.
A few days ago.
Yeah, the whole world is completely different. First off, it's just so perfect. You're out there in Hawaii. You've got birds chirping behind you, perfect lighting. This is like, you made the right move getting out of politics. You really did.
I'm grateful. It's, yes, I'm home here in Hawaii. The day started early, but you know, my workspace is like the other half of my laundry room that includes windows that hear the birds waking up and talking to each other first thing in the morning. So I really have no complaints, and it's a great reminder about, you know, there's a lot of other things happening in life that we should stop and take a moment to appreciate.
Yeah, most people are fighting with the Twitter bird all day long. You've got real birds out
Good
there,
one.
so definitely living your best life. Okay, so you are going to make an announcement in a few minutes, but let's just kind of talk about what's happened over the last couple of days, because it actually is relevant to the announcement that you're going to make. We know that the social media bannings are going through the roof right now. Parler was basically nuked by the Apple Store and Google Play, and then Amazon took their servers down. We're watching Twitter accounts be obliterated. What do you make of just the general tenor of what's happening right now? We can get into some of like the specific stuff, but just the general stuff. Like literally, I talked to you 4 days ago. We weren't talking about this stuff, and now it does seem like the assault is on.
You know, people like you and I have been talking about the threat of these big tech monopolies and the power that they hold for a long time now. But I think given the events of the last few days now, not only people across our country, but people in other countries, leaders in other countries are saying, hold on a second here. This is a very dangerous thing that these big tech monopolies have such an incredible amount of power that they can completely cancel, censor, or ban certain platforms or individuals from existing kind of on the internet, because it's hard to have a space if you can't talk on Twitter, if you're not allowed on Facebook, or if you can't have a YouTube account, or in Parler's case, if you're not allowed to host something on an Amazon server. So I think a lot more people, this is such a dangerous situation that we are all being confronted with. And I think a lot more people, a silver lining would be a lot more people are starting to become really aware of how much power these big tech corporations have been building that's brought us to this point where almost literally with a click of a button, they can collaborate together and decide, nope, we don't want this platform or app or person to be heard from.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny because we talked like 4 days ago when I did the intro here, I only mentioned Parler, but the other thing, of course, is that the President of the United States is no longer on Facebook, Twitter. They took him off Spotify and Pinterest. I guess he can't listen to music now or post his little cakes and things. What would you have done if you were in charge of one of these companies? What do you think a sensible policy looks like? Because at some level, I do sympathize that they have to make these crazy decisions, right? Like if there's people calling for violence, obviously you don't want that. You know me, I would be as liberal with speech as possible. But if you were in charge of Twitter in the midst of this craziness, what would you do about some of this fringe stuff?
I mean, I think we have to look at the law, and the law that is set and protected by the First Amendment. So the example that's always given that's most common is, you know, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater because that would clearly result in a lot of personal and physical harm to people in the theater. It would incite that kind of, rampage and people get hurt. There are other examples that you could point to, but that's kind of the barometer that that we should use, that these corporations should use in making decisions about which tweets or which posts could be a violation of the law in that sense and not be protected by our First Amendment rights.
Yeah. Would you just leave up stuff that, as long as it basically wasn't breaking the law? Would that basically be the idea? Yeah. I mean, it's like they're outsourcing. It seems to me that the government is basically outsourcing their decisions to tech companies. And that seems very scary, right?
Yeah, it's whether by design or by accident, the power that these big tech companies have been allowed to amass is a pretty dangerous thing in a democratic society, in particular. And the fact that even throughout the events of the last few days, that we have to hear from, Angela Merkel in Germany saying, oh, this is a really dangerous thing that is an unprecedented threat to the freedom of speech. We're not hearing that from many people in our own government at the highest levels, which should raise alarm bells, given our society is set up on this foundation of fundamental freedoms, foremost among which is that freedom of speech. And again, I think this should be a cause for a lot of introspection amongst us as people, but also in holding our own leaders accountable, saying, how can you support this? The thing that is always interesting to me, and that I've seen numerous examples of, especially over the last year, is how people, like AOC and others support these actions. But what happens if, Jack leaves Twitter and it's taken over by somebody who holds values different from AOC, and then the tables are turned and they decide, actually, you know what? We don't want to hear what you have to say. You hold views that we believe to be a threat to those that, that are held by the corporate, the C-suite boards or whatever of these. So the point being, like, the tables can turn very quickly, and that's really the danger of this. And when we talk about free speech, we talk about free speech, whether it's speech that we agree with or we don't agree with. We have to stand up in protection of that freedom, because if we only do it for our tribe or our people or people who we agree with, then we're really undermining that freedom overall.
Yeah, and of course, it's ironic when you talk about the tables being flipped. I'm more of a competition guy, and it is possible. I always concede maybe these companies are so extraordinarily large right now that competition is sort of impossible. That's what Parler seems to be coming against because of this Amazon thing. But I kept saying all along, when people said Trump needs to regulate, I kept saying, well, wait a minute. If Trump loses the election, well, he may be sympathetic to some of your free speech stuff, but the people that you're about to bring in are not going to be, and then you're going to be in a much worse situation. So you can make the same flawed argument from AOC and the Trump crowd at exactly the same time. All right, listen, I know you are a busy lady with a lot going on with those birds out there in Hawaii, so let's shift to what Tulsi is doing next, because when I had you on last week, basically every comment in every forum that I looked at was like, that woman should be running for president again, that woman should be back in public office, blah, 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 blah. I don't think you're going back to public office just yet, but you do have an announcement to make. What are you doing, Tulsi?
Yeah, it's in the line of what we're talking about the need to come together as Americans, not as Democrats or Republicans, but the need to come together as Americans and stand up to protect our freedoms and our freedom of speech and encourage civil discourse around issues, connect with each other as people rather than as partisans. I've been looking for a great way to do this, and I'm glad that I connected with you. We're launching today my platform on locals and starting the Tulsi community on locals. It's going to be a great place to hang out in Hawaii. We call it Talk Story. Hey, let's go talk story, which really is just like, let's exchange ideas. Let's share our stories with each other. Let's get to know each other better and see how we can come up with great ideas, constructive policies, different things that we can do both in our own ways as individuals, in our own communities, in our own circles, but also how we can work together to further advance the ideas and values that are fundamental to our country. So it'll be I'm excited about it because it'll be a great place for like-minded people to come together and have these discussions, hang out. I like to cook. I know you do too. It's not going to be all politics. I don't think anybody can stand all politics, but it'll be a great place to share conversation, exclusive content, I'll find my best recipes and share a few with people. My most recent one was a beautiful vegan miso shiitake ramen.
Ooh.
And I posted that on Instagram, and people were like, oh my God, that looks amazing. Share the recipe. So it'll be a fun place to gather together and have some real conversation, make friends, hang out, and be free from the concerns and constraints that a lot of us feel. You know, I think very carefully before I put out a tweet, because you have to. This will be a place where we can all kind of just relax a little bit more and know that we are amongst friends.